My insane mother is going off the rails. But I am at the end of my ropes because I just got knowledge that she attacked my baby sister. So I can't let that happen. I decide to go confront my mother and see why she's so mad. Her reason to attack my sister is this. She's mad that she's not young and pretty anymore. To start off with, my sister finished high school and has gone on to college. But our mother didn't take my sister's growing up very well. You see, at first, Mom was just acting sad and playing the victim after I'd forced her to see that she and my sister were not on the same clothing sizes. Some said I went about it the wrong way by being so blunt by forcing her to see she could not fit into a coat my sister can. However, I really don't think that there would have been another way to go through to her without involving authorities. Police, CPS, etc. After the incident, my 45-year-old mother was still dressing in clothes like a teenager at home, and binge-eating fast food. And my sister caught her in her room trying to try on her clothes several times. Yes, our mother did destroy a few more pieces of my sister's clothing trying to put them on, but we confronted her each and every time, rather than make her previous excuse of stating her belief that my sister and her were the same size. She would just lock herself in her room howling and crying, to the point neighbors even once called police to do a wellness check. Of course, when police arrived, I saw a very different side of my mother. She'd put on a nightgown and did not look like someone who'd just been crying her eyes out. Not only was she pretending to act her age, she lied through her teeth and said that my sister had been the one making those noises because she'd been grounded for tearing up her mother's new clothing. I called this out as an outright lie, and she yells at me to shut up. The police didn't know who to believe, but nobody was hurt, no threats were being made, and my mother would not stop with the guilting waterworks that her children were so awful to her. So, the police just issued a verbal warning and left. As soon as they were gone, my mother told me to get out, and that she didn't want me as a son anymore because I made her feel horrible about herself. I realized then that the loving mother she once was, who raised us, was completely gone. Eaten by the narcissist before us then. Just a few years prior, she was a kind and loving mother, especially to my sister, but that obviously changed. There was a verbal altercation in which I pointed out to my mom's face how much of a narcissist she was being. Regardless of the size of her clothing, she didn't need to be trying on my sister's clothes. They were not hers. She wasn't even buying my sister's clothing anymore, and if she wanted to disown me so badly, then fine. But I'd also be disowning her. She threatened to hurt me again, at which point I told her to bring it on. She may be twice my weight, but she's not strong, and if she were to hurt my sister, I'd make dang sure she regretted it. My mother went back to howling and crying in her room after I said that, so I just left, but not before telling my sister to call me if she tries anything else. Crap hit the fan not long after my sister's 18th birthday. In May, she went out with her friends because our mother had barely spoken to her in some time, and she'd effectively disowned me and gone no contact, and she was just bidding her time to kick my sister out as well. When my sister came home from her birthday party, she found her stuff in boxes and bags left outside the apartment she shared with our mom, and there was a note taped to the door telling my sister to leave and never come back. This would normally be the point where someone might say that they were heartbroken, but the truth is that we were prepared for this. We knew Mom wanted my sister out because she refused to take Mom's crap anymore. So, she'd been secretly taking her stuff over to her friend's house little by little. This includes her personal documents for her identity, so all her important stuff was out of there anyways. And our mom just did not seem to notice. My sister calls me. I come over with my car to start packing up her remaining stuff to take to her friend's house, since my sister was 18, she could go where she wanted, and her friend's family took her in. My sister lived happily there while she finished high school and had a great summer before she and her friend both left for college. They'd applied to the same place and were both accepted. They're some distance away now, but they're happy and living as roommates. But as so often is the case, there was trouble brewing in paradise. I think our mother was hoping to pull some sort of emotional manipulation by kicking my sister out. But it backfired badly since none of us even batted an eyelash about it. So, Mom starts messaging my sister that she'd cut off her phone plan if she didn't speak to her. So my sister responded by getting her own phone with money that she's earned working part-time, and sent the old phone back to our mother in the mail with a letter telling her off for what she tried to do. Mom did not take that well, but she no longer had a way of contacting my sister without trying to see her in person. So, she came stomping over to my apartment to yell at me and say it was all my fault. Then she demanded my sister's new phone number, and I told her to buzz off because she was no longer my mom. She'd previously made it clear I was no longer her son, and if she didn't leave me alone, I would be calling authorities. And then, in complete repeat of what happened on the day I'd forced her to see my sister was not the same size as her, she ran away howling and crying like an animal. But by then, I was pretty sure it was all just an act. So, the next day, my mother was showing up at my sister's friend's house and then starts demanding she moves back in with her and contributes to rent, because she was paying for a 2-bedroom on her own, and got no child support since my sister is now 18. Like me, my sister told her to buzz off. That's when my mom attacked her. She grabbed my sister and starts wailing on her while screaming that it's unfair, that my sister got to be young, thin, and pretty, and that she wasted her youth being a mother. That's about as far as she got before my sister's friend's father took her down. He ripped her off my sister and threw her to the ground. This man is an ex-Navy SEAL and built like a steamboat. He pinned my mother down and forced her into submission before calling the cops. He referred to her as a screaming whale for the sound she was making. At this point, my sister was taken to the hospital after police arrived and took statements. The Ring doorbell camera on the house had caught the entire fight, and so the dad was in charge for taking down my mother as he'd reacted in defense of my sister. My sister was lucky, to be honest, and only had some bruises, a black eye, and a bump on her head. Our mother was a heavy woman, but she couldn't fight her way out of a paper bag. So, my mom ends up in jail, and she used her one phone call to try and guilt me into coming over and paying to have her released. I just said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a mother. You must have the wrong number," before ending the phone call, and she did not ever call me again. My mother bailed herself out, but still had to go to court for attacking my sister. She ended up just getting off with a fine. She was also kicked out of her apartment by the landlord for several reasons. One of them being she tried to solicit herself to him, or so he says, but she denied it ever happened. So she was kicked out after a month or so, but she left a surprise for him. She painted graffiti on the walls and speared the bathroom with her own feces. The landlord called me over, and I saw all the chaos that she left. Thankfully, it wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be. Just some choice words for the landlord painted on the walls. And, the bathroom mostly just had the mirrors smeared. So the landlord did not bother to call the police, and a cleaning crew had the apartment cleaned and repainted quickly enough. But from there, my mother spiraled out of control. I heard she tried to pick up younger guys several times, and a friend tipped me off to where she was doing it. I found her in a bar across town. She was wearing pink hot pants and a few sizes too small and tried to pick up a guy half her age. And she starts calling him a vain little jerk for not being interested. She was trying to claim to be 29 years of age, but absolutely nobody believed her. Then she saw me. She looked furious the second she realized I was there and started her howling back up as she stomped out. I ended up having to explain to a few people that she was my mother, and she's nuts. The bar manager told me he'd put her on the ban list because she was trouble every time she came in. The spiral went deeper. I really didn't know what my mother was doing for a living, or even where she was living, as she's gotten fired from her job and had no apartment. By this point, my sister was happily off to college, and people stopped seeing my mother around town. That is, until she was found dead in a motel room. She overdosed from drugs and died in late October. I was next of kin, so I was notified of some details, and she's heavily overdosed. Also had a lot of alcohol and junk food in the motel room that she was binging on. So police were pretty sure she intended to die this way. When I saw her after she passed, she'd lost a fair bit of weight and looked like she's aged at least 10 years in just a few months' times. It turns out she was suffering from an untreated STD and had likely been abusing substances for years. She'd pretty much destroyed her body from the inside out, and in her final couple of years of life, she was the worst mother she's ever been. Maybe from a mental condition or from her drug use, we don't know. I guess we'll never know now. The funeral for my mother was little more than a very small gathering with an urn, and we spread the ashes at sea. There were no tears shed by either me or my sister, or even many words spoken. We ended up going out for ice cream and just having a talk before she had to drive back to where she currently lives, because, well, she had class in the morning. I think it can be best described that we weren't happy Mom passed away, but not sad about it either. If anything, I'm not really sure how to mentally process it, other than the fact that it's just over and to move on. Currently, we have plans to meet at my sister's friend's parents' house for Christmas. My sister and I have no close relatives nearby, and since we were raised so far away from them, they're fairly indifferent to us. Always have been. My sister and I don't even have the same father. We don't even know who our fathers were. Mother never told us. She'd just say we didn't need to know because they didn't want us there. So, there's no point in seeking out a parent that doesn't want you, right? But we're working hard to move forward in life. I've recently begun dating a nice girl I met while having a morning coffee, and we've been together for about 3 weeks now. Without my mother in my life. Drama has been minimalized, and I'm rather thankful of that. Hopefully, I'll never have to make a post on this site again. Wow. That story was a lot to take in, and ultimately, I do feel sad for this entire situation. Let's read a couple comments, though. The first comment says this. Holy crap. Found dead in a motel room was not the route that I was expecting. Good on you and your sister for getting away from that toxic mess, and good luck in the future. Yeah, says comment 2, this was a wild ride. The mom overdosing was definitely a shock for me. And I can't even imagine how OP and his sister felt. Hopefully, their lives will continue to improve. Guys, I would love to know your thoughts on this story. Maybe you've been in a situation like this, or you know someone who was in a situation like this. Go ahead and let me know your comments down below. We still have one more story to look at. The title is this. My mother lost all of her children, and as a revenge, set my brother-in-law's house on fire. For the people who don't know, my little sister was extremely entitled and bratty just like my mother, and who, just like my mom, baby-trapped her boyfriend instead of ignoring her like me and my other siblings do. She had her head up my mom's butt. When my mom was arrested, my sister told me that it was my fault, that I ruined the family, and when she sees me, she's going to kick my butt. Some nights ago, my husband woke me up and told me that my sister was at our house, on our porch. My husband asked what we should do. Call the cops. I mean, that was my first plan because it's like 4 a.m. and I don't like my sister, but I'm an adult and I can use my own words. I told my sister to leave because 1, I don't like her, and 2, it's 4 a.m. But I realized my sister was crying and her arms was a new baby. She told me that living with our mother was awful and she couldn't go back to that house. I asked, after all she did to my family, why should I help her? And how did I know that her crying for help was not a way to trap one of us? So, she just kept crying, begging me for help, then something in me snapped. That big sister in me that I hit over the head with a shovel and buried in the backyard years ago came back to life. I told my husband to get my baby sister. When my husband came back with my sister, she looked awful. We talked for hours, and it was very emotional for the both of us. We just cried, and my sister begged for my forgiveness. She was just apologizing for all the things she's done, from taking our mother's side to calling my daughter and I names. Both of us are autistic, and I'm pretty sure my husband is also. Then she started apologizing to my husband directly. My sister gets on her knees, just apologizing and begging us not to send her back to Mom's house. As my sister and I talked, I found out how bad my mom's got. My mom became abusive towards my sister, hitting and yelling at her even when my sister did something that our mom approved of. When my siblings and I were younger, I always took the hits for them. Like it my sister drew on the wall with a crayon. I tell Mom I did it so my sister wouldn't get in trouble. I was the oldest, so it was my duty to shield the little ones. Like when my mom was having, sex with men all over the house. The living room, the kitchen, even in my baby's nephew's room. My mom was doing pills now and tried to get my sister into it. My sister admits that my mom is the one who called CPS. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, in my first post when I wrote about the cop showing up to our house, I forgot to mention the CPS worker. I thought I added it in there, but going back over it with my husband, I realized I did not. I just kept forgetting to add that in as everything I just started to delve deeper into heck. I kind of mentioned that the cops and the CPS worker were here to follow up on the accusations that my husband was abusing our daughter and I. The abuse ranged from physical to sexual, and I had a feeling my mom was behind it, but I obviously had no proof. My sister told us that my mom had plans on filing for grandparent rights, but grandparent rights isn't a thing here. While I was talking to my sister, her son starts crying, and then she started crying some more. Covered her ears and started screaming at her son to shut up. The baby was just hungry. My sister starts crying hard and saying that she couldn't do it. She couldn't take care of her son. In my last post, someone asked, if your grandpa cut your mom off, how does she have money? Or something like that. Well, I mentioned my grandmother gave my mom a lot of money when she died, but I also mentioned the family theory that grandfather gave my mom money to have a hysterectomy. Well, it turns out that's not a theory, but it's true. It's a fact. My mom got a case of the baby rabies, so she pressured my 14-year-old sister into poking holes into her condoms. So, when the next time my sister had fun with her boyfriend, she'll get pregnant and my mom would become a grandma. My mom promised to help with my sister's son, but ever since the baby's been born, my mom hasn't lifted a finger to help. Besides taking pictures of him in shirts saying grandma's baby and crap like that. I'm surprised that my sister believes that, because my mom did not even take care of her. Well, the thing is, I asked, what about the baby's father? She told me that he left her because she admitted to him that she baby-trapped him. I asked, what about the housemaids and the nannies? My mom had some type of mental breakdown and fired every single one of them. I then asked her about her father, and she tried to contact him, right? She told me that he gave up on her a long time ago and that he doesn't want anything to do with her. My sister just broke down saying that she can't take care of her son. She loves him, but she doesn't want her son and she doesn't know what to do. I found out my sister hadn't slept for days, so I told her to get some rest and I'll take care of her son and I'll try to contact her father. The same night, I was able to call her dad and explain that things are crazy here, and if he can try and help his daughter, that would be nice. He was so adamant that he did not want anything to do with his child, and I can understand. My sister ducked him up mentally, and he felt betrayed by the actions of my sister. I understand that, but his daughter needs him. And besides, 4 of my brother-in-laws live in the house with their families and she can't stay here. I told him to do it for his grandson, which shocked him because he didn't know my sister was pregnant. He sighs and says he'll see what he can do. My sister slept for 2 days, and in that time, my mom realized my sister was gone. My mom starts to freak out and reported my sister as missing, so I call my grandfather so he can tell his crazy child that her daughter is in good hands. I told my grandfather that I was able to contact my sister's father, and I shared what my sister told me. I told him to make sure my little brothers are safe. Now that my sister left, my mom probably will go crazy and might try to take the boys. But when my sister was up, she realized her dad had arrived. My sister just kept apologizing, and that was an emotional time for the both of them. If you care, my sister was never really a daddy's girl and always preferred our mom over him. So, when mom starts having her affairs, she was able to manipulate my sister into keeping secrets and actually helping my mom hide them. Like, let's say, my sister and mom will go on a girls' trip. My mother will just use that girls' trip to have affairs. Turns out my little brothers are not their dads, and my sister knew about it, and by the time my mom and their dad got divorced, my sister chose my mother. My sister even said to her dad to his face that she wished our mom's affair partner, the one that my mom's currently married to, was her real father. Being betrayed by your wife is absolutely devastating, but being betrayed by your own daughter is a new low blow. By the way, the reason why we all found out my mom was cheating on her husband was because we walked in on her having sex with my 17-year-old boyfriend. Duck yeah, Devin, if you're reading this, I know you're a piece of crap. Suck my jerk. I hope you enjoy the diseases my mom probably gave you. You were the one that got me into drugs such a young age, and I hate you, Devin. You big head and little arms having butt. Devin, you're the human equivalent of a, I don't even know. I just hope something bad happens to you, if you can even call it that. So, that's why my ex-stepdad separated himself from my sister. He loves my little brothers, by the way, and he's always picking them up, taking them on vacation, talking to them, and even hanging out with them. But he never interacts with my sister. Eventually, my brothers came over to spend time with their father, because they haven't seen him in a while. Then, my siblings' dad talked to my grandfather, and they both decided it would be best for my siblings to go live with their dad. But before my sister left, I asked her how she knew where our house was. Guess what? Our mother told her. I asked how our mom knew, and my sister says that she doesn't know that. Cool. Also, if you're asking if we reported the abuse that my sister suffered living with my mom knows how to duck you up without leaving a bruise. But we reported it anyways. Surprisingly, my mom did not go crazy like we all thought. She didn't try to take the boys or anything like that, and she was surprisingly silent. But she was silently acting out her revenge. Now, on to Satan. I'm going to keep this part extremely vague because of a lot of legal things happening right now, but my mom and her cult following knew where we were the whole time. They got caught in 4K cameras setting in my lawn's house on fire. And now they're missing. They were trying to hurt all of us, and the reason, well, we're not all dead. We were all having a slumber party at mother-in-law's. And now there's a warrant out for my family's arrest. They lost her. They lost my mom. When I mean by they, I don't mean my family. That's on my side. I also mean the police. They ducking lost her. Everything in her house is still there. However, her social media's gone. Her siblings are gone, and no one knows where they went. Now, I am deeply afraid for my life, and it doesn't help that we still don't know who gave my mom those pictures of my children. Well, anyways, we also don't know who was the one who gave our location. We've just been doing what we were all suggested. faking information and giving to different people, but we still haven't found out who ducking gave my mom the info, and I'm absolutely terrified. Not just for my children, but for myself. I'm losing it. Some of you guys do think I'm being tough. I'm so brave that I just keep moving forward. No, that's bullcrap. I've been having a ton of nightmares of my mother taking my children, hurting my husband, and leaving me destitute. I've been having multiple mental breakdowns. I just cry while doing nothing. I'm not doing okay. Some of my brother-in-laws and their wives jumped on me, and half of their house burned down, with the fact that all of this is my fault, which it is. The result of that made me slip back into 13-year-old me, saying I hurt myself. I just couldn't take the pressure from people that used to treat me like family. And some of them were telling my husband to divorce me because I'm just going to drag him deeper and deeper into this mess. I wish I never let that woman back in my life. If I did, none of this would be happening. I got diagnosed with depression, and I'm currently on some anti-version of it. My in-laws were divided into people that wish my husband had never met me and people that feel sorry for me. That was until I ended up in the hospital, and my mother-in-law lost it on all of them. But there's a high possibility that my oldest brother-in-law and his wife are divorcing now, and that one's on me. Two different versions about the situation, and it caused the rift between both of them, and it's absolutely my fault. Well, my husband has been really stepping up and taking care of everything. Because I'm a legit useless person at this moment in time. To cheer me up, though, my husband let me open my Christmas gift early. A photo album and a little title that says, Life of My Middle Name. My husband and my dad have been working on it for a long time, and they were planning on giving it to me this year. It was full of my milestones, accomplishments, and things I've done for other people, and I cried when I felt like less of a burden. So, we're currently staying with a friend of my husband's, and I know this friend's daughter from high school, and she always comes down for the holidays, so it's really nice to see her again. And that's basically my ducked up update. As I type this, my husband and his friend are being turned into a pretty little princess by their nieces and daughter. Also, my father. This Christmas would be the first without him, and I hate it. Every year my dad and I would watch Home Alone, smoke a joint, get high, and then watch the lights on the Christmas tree. When my daughter was born, my father and I continued our little routine, but left out the marijuana. I feel lost. Will this feeling ever go away? My birthday's on the 2nd, and I not want to think I can even handle it. That's all I have to say about that, so goodbye for now. Maybe I'll share some more stories about my mother to try to make me feel less stressed. Alright guys, here's the comment that's the top one for this post. Oh wow. When I read your title, I thought, yeah, sure, but I believe you and I'm terrified for you. I know this is not a practical suggestion. I know how much you would go into it, but there's any way. Your husband and kids could just up and move away, far away, and not ever tell anyone who you were. To basically start over somewhere new with just them. I know, that's a huge hard thing to do, but for the safety of the ones you love the most, and for your own sanity, maybe think about it. I'm just flabbergasted here. You have too much going on, and you're in literal danger. Knowing she could very well be coming for you, have you spoken with the police so they can drive by your place frequently until they at least find her? Guys, OP replied to this comment and said this. Yeah, we even moved already. They still found us. Knowing my mom, she's not going to stop until one of us are, well, dead. And we've talked to the police multiple times and they keep letting her go every single time she does something crazy. The whole police department there is currently under investigation, though that's a separate story. I can't talk about it, but let's just say a lot of police officers know my mom quite well. Wow, guys, so let me know exactly your thoughts about this story in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one.